Hi. So, my name is Yusan Beck, and I actually wrote this book called The First Journal of Marcus Alpha Katana. Today, I'm going to use it to teach a lesson about describing character development. I wasn't going to use a book that I wrote, but somebody actually brought it to my attention that I should go ahead and use a book that I wrote to talk about character development. So, to begin, what is character development? There are many different things that authors will use to talk about a character. In this situation, I'm going to read a prelude of this book first. So after I read a prelude of this book, I'm going to go into a little bit of discussion about that prelude where the character remembers his birth, and then I'm going to talk about a few other things that happened in the book in entry 1. And I'm just going to go over entry 1 of the book because the book is written in entries and not chapters, so that you guys see how the author decides to develop this character. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and actually look at character development. Okay? So, before saying too much and starting to read, some things that you would look for in character development are clues about what's important to the author's mind on who that character is. Like, what is the author trying to tell you about that character? So that's one question I'd like you to look at whenever you read a book about the character. What is the author trying to tell me about this character? Why did the author tell me this about that character? What little details, or already see that the author is starting that character development? First of all, we go back to he remembers his birth. As he talks about his birth, I'm going to add that the author points out a few details in the birth. First of all, the character is sitting there saying he's seeing fleshy red walls. How many children actually see the fleshy red walls during their birth? How many children can actually smell and know that they can't smell? How many children can actually taste and feel food going in their mouth from the womb? How many children actually know about their birth? Curious though, he went through all the senses of his birth, even the sound of shh, 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 but he doesn't know what time he was born. That's amazing. But then I also want you to know something. The author did something else special. The author talks about the character remembering the lessons that his mom taught him, but he doesn't talk about the lessons that his dad taught him. It's another interesting thing. It's curious. So right there, the author already starts developing some traits of the character. So those are some important details to know in the character development, because right there, the author is already developing some of the character traits. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this line. Learn to tie your shoes. This is an important part because now we're going to start going to entry 1. Once again, this book is not like any other book. This book is written in a totally different genre. This book is actually written as if it's a journal and not a book. So this book is like you're reading somebody's journal, and you're reading it from him being this unique individual who went through some tragic experiences, and they piece together a few pieces of his life from this timeline to that timeline. So as you read through it, you get sucked into the journal, and it's like you found his journal under a bed. So we're just reading entry 1. We're not going to read any other entries. Entry 1. A cold winter night. My mom always used to tell me, learn to tie your shoes, because I won't be able to do it for you forever. She went through hours of teaching and reteaching me how to tie my shoes. She explained to me how to wash properly and how to eat properly, and instilled the importance of learning to do things on my own. All her teachings brought me to this cold winter's day. On a cold winter's night, the ice shriveled up my spine in a bone-chilling feeling. Brisk vapors of air breeze chipperly filled my nostrils with cool, misty scents of smoke, frozen leaves, and crisp wind. The effervescent, melted, icy frost lay upon my lips and tongue. Piles of multicolored snow lay all around. Black and brown snow was plowed into mountains on the side. Gray and white snow covered the ground like the flat, thick coat that covered my body. There were patches of yellow snow with brown clumps off to the side on the grass. The sound of children playing was everywhere. No one was in sight. Then there came two shadowy figures out of the dark that suddenly stopped. I was walking with my mom as we left from the clean courts of the Pfeiffer Center. The two figures carried shovels that were used to break up the cold rock chunks. Clunk, clink, clunk, clink, clunk were the sounds heard as each piece of ice shriveled under the strong smacks from the shovels of those men. Not everything was as scary as it seemed. Then some people with piercings filled the ground with pitter-patter coming in our direction. Mom held me close, but they shot right by us, and a gust of icy, bone-chilling air passed through our hair. They were rushing to catch their adorable brown and beige muddy that escaped to play outside. It was a cold, long night, and we never found what we were looking for. I was worried because we looked hard only to find nothing, and I simply sought to find something. So mundane and ordinary those times were. This particular time in my life became terribly traumatizing and tumultuously turbulent. This was a fun day for us both because we enjoyed playing in the snow. Walking down Main Street, I skipped joyously, enjoying the brisk, cool wind. Not a care in the world could be seen. Suddenly, a shiny red sedan passed by. The driver slipped and lost control of the car. The car hooked the sidewalk and just missed my mother. My mom quickly fell backward on the ice, and a faucet pouring red water turned on in the back of her head. Red lights and a loud sirens flooded the streets, and I ended up surrounded by multitudes of people. It was the coldest winter night I had ever faced. At the end of the day, I waited in the hospital, thinking to myself that I am ready, I hope. I learned to tie my shoes. I knew how to wash properly, and I understood how to eat properly. Thank you for all your hard work. I know how you cared. I learned to do much on my own because of you. I may be unsure of tomorrow, but I know that you have always been there. You were there for me after my dad died, and my world was turned upside down the first time. I hope you make it through this, though. Please don't leave me alone. Now, I want you to understand something as you listen to that story. How many of you can feel the pain this character felt? Just reading that, I can feel a little bit of tears in my eyes as I can think about how much he cared about his mom. Learn to tie your shoes because I won't be able to do it for you forever. But then he comes back again while he's in the hospital waiting for his mom, unsure of the fate of his mom. And he says again, at the end of the day, I waited in the hospital thinking to myself that I am ready. I hope I learned to tie my shoes. I knew how to wash properly, and I understood how to eat properly. Thank you for all your hard work. So, in this character, even though his mom is lying in the hospital bed, unsure of whether she's going to live or die, he shows gratitude. He's begging for his mom not to leave him alone. So that shows two things about your character, two things about this character's development. First, he has a strong connection to his mom. But second, even in tragedy, he is still showing gratitude. His mom taught him so many lessons that one of the most important lessons to him in his life is to show gratitude and to show persistence and perseverance and to still want to try even though he just may have possibly lost his mom. So somewhere along before all of this, he was learned to understand what it means to persevere. But there's something else that we learned here. Wait for it and think about it. He said something about his mom. We look through all here, and it says, this particular time in my life became terribly traumatizing and tumultuously turbulent. This was a fun day for both of us because we enjoyed playing in the snow. That's ironic. Why would he say this was a traumatizing and tumultuously turbulent time, yet at the same time it was a fun day for both of us because we enjoyed playing in the snow? So this was the last fun day that he had with his mom that he remembered, yet it was the most horrifying day that he had with his mom. But then at the same time, we also find out that all these other things that scared him and could have happened weren't the thing that took his mom. But as you go through here, he sits there, and he eventually said somewhere in here that he lost his dad, because he says, you were there for me after my dad died, and my world was turned upside down the first time. So somewhere in there, we learned, right here, you were there for me after my dad died, and my world was turned upside down the first time. So this is not the first tragic event that's happened to this character. So he has persevered through another tragedy. So right now, he's sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, not again. So the question that we're left asking, and I'm not going to tell you, because you have to read chapter, oh, I'm sorry, this book is designed in entries, because it's not written like every other book. You have to read entry 2 to figure this out, and I know this, because I wrote the book. Did what happened to his father, did his mom die, or did his mom live? That's the question we're left to ask. But if you want to find out ahead of time, you can actually get the book on Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. But otherwise, I will do another story and work on entry 2, and I will work more on describing character development. But what we do know so far about this character, Marcus Alpha Katana, which, by the way, I will let you know, that's not his real name. So, disclaimer, that's not his real name. That's a little inside information. So, nobody knows his real name, and it's not revealed in this journal. There are more journals to come. So, this is part of a series because it's the first journal. But, we know his dad died, and we don't know how his dad died or anything. So, later entries will talk about how his dad died, and we don't know whether his mom lives or not. So I want you to think about, while you're waiting for the next entry, whether his mom dies or not. What do you think? Let me know, and when the next video comes out, you'll find out.